Please welcome Peter Oberdorfer. He is the founder and executive creative director at Tactic. He is a 25-year veteran in the digital entertainment and CGI industry. Peter has co-founded several well-regarded digital post-production companies as well, including the interactive UX firm Flow Hybrid Entertainment and the Academy Award-winning, as well as Emmy Award-winning visual effects studio Giant Killer Robots. And lastly, he's also founded the Hollywood's original pre-visualization firm, Pixel Liberation Front. Take it away, Peter.
Thanks, AWE, for having me today, and thanks for coming today to listen to me. I originally was going to be here with Ming Alterman, the brand manager for 19 Crimes, but he had a family emergency, so I'll be going solo today and try and do this justice. But I presented this material before, so I think it'll all work out. Is there a clicker for the slides, or how do will I be in control of the slides? Yeah? Anyway, so this is an interesting use case in terms of, the use of AR in brands. In terms of like the tenure of this experience, it's been out for close to 5 years now, and originally it was released kind of, the brand came to me and asked, like, can we do a 360 video experience? And I said, where is it? Oh, okay. Oh, here you go. All right. All right, thanks. So originally, the experience was supposed to be a 360 experience, and I pitched the idea of doing a package-based AR experience. We had done one for Cuervo, I think, in 2014, and that was a little bit before its time, I think. It was like the iPhone, 3 or 4 or something like that. But it was really fun to work on, and I thought this might be a thing that as phones get better, as the hardware gets better, this is something that might work. And there were such great images on these bottles, so I thought rather than make something that was going to hit a smaller audience and be disassociated from the packaging, why don't we have the experience scale with the packaging and be something that people can experience at home or at the retail space right on the packaging, have the brand tell a story. So I showed the brand this type of technology and the experience, and we just did a test with John O'Reilly, the main character, moving his head around, on the bottle, and they were sold, and they said, can we make this say anything we want? And I said, yep, you guys can script this and make it work that way. And so, we were off to the races at that point, and they started out with their 3 most popular products or SKUs in the line, but all this packaging, I want to say, was pre-existing. We didn't have to do anything special to make it work. It's just image recognition and cylindrical mapping. We originally developed this in Unity with the Vuforia library for AR. Anyway, I'll get back to that later a little bit. But we ended up expanding the first 3 bottle experiences into, I think, 7 bottles, and then that became, each bottle had 3 or 4 or 5 different experiences on it. So it started really stacking up, and with that, the usership kind of rose. Like initially we had, I think in the first month, a bit of a trickle, like maybe 30,000 people saw it. But then the brand started showing it in their wine tastings around the country. Treasury Wine Estates owns 19 Crimes. They own about 70 other brands like Stag's Leap, Behringer, Penfolds, a lot of other brands. But this was sort of one of their middle brands at the time, and they were trying to promote it. So they would do these wine tastings at the different retail locations, and then this was sort of, a nice digital pairing to show with the wine so people could remember it. And that got the attention not only of the consumers, but a local media and then eventually national media. And then we really started to see this hockey stick in terms of people picking up the app and buying the wine and bringing it to parties as a party trick and that sort of thing. And so we, kind of saw the usership go from like 20, 30,000 up to like 400, 500,000, and then just keep going and going and going. And then from there, we noticed that, that the other brands in the mantle of Treasury Wine Estates wanted to start getting involved. And so they came back to us after, things were starting to hit around 1 million users in about 6 or 7 weeks and said, we have some other brands that would like to get involved with this as well. And so we changed the name of the app from 19 Crimes AR app or something like that to Living Wine Labels and made a platform for them that was more modular that could accommodate these other brands. And it was brand agnostic, but all under the Treasury sort of umbrella. But it was essentially a framework where we could bring in different branded experiences and add and subtract them, and then add other features like push notifications, signups, couponing, what have you, and then, full analytics stack on all of these so that we could kind of see how these consumers in a 3-tiered system were actually picking up the bottle. So you could tell if so-and-so and, somebody in Texas, an anonymous user in Texas, shopped multiple products within the 19 Crimes line and then maybe jumped to another brand. And you could see if they were discovering these things through the app, and correlate that to the Salesforce data that they had on the back end. So the sort of pickup on this was pretty immediate, and over the first year we had a lot of usership, but it was sustained, and it sustains today in terms of users. We have, I think it's something like 150,000 users per month to this day, active, per month, active sessions. And there's been a cumulative something like 30 million sessions in the app. And the sales correlated with that. There's 19 Crimes specifically had over 250% increase in sales from this, and went from sort of a middle of the pack brand for Treasury to their top selling brand based on the AR campaign. And the demographics on this, because we have an age gate, even though the user data was anonymous, the demographics on this were really flat. That's one thing that surprised us. So it wasn't just, 21 to 24-year-olds or something that were doing this. It wasn't millennials or that sort of thing. It was all the way across the board, So you had like the TikTok users, the Instagram users, and the Facebook users kind of, And so we saw, people are like in their 50s and such using this just as much as we were seeing people in their 20s use this. So that was really interesting to us. And we also, localized this internationally, and we saw a lot of pickup in different markets. As the wine industry is growing in different markets, we were able to localize and translate all of the experiences internationally, and we did that in 12 different languages. And the platform allowed us to do all of this. So there are a number of experiences that, in addition to 19 Crimes, that we created for Treasury. There was one of the more popular ones was Walking Dead, and you can tell why that would be more popular. It's a great property. We worked with Skybound and their artists who did the graphic novel to kind of create a graphic novel within the wine bottles. And, they were interactive, so we kind of experimented with medium a little bit in this one. And, instead of having just the labels tell their stories, we did things like if you got too close to a 3D zombie, that it would break out of the bottle and break your screen. If you got too close, there's sort of this kind of passive interactivity based on proximity. We would have stories inside the bottle like the one you see there, or we would have the characters actually get out of the bottle and fight on the tabletop. So if you had 2 bottles, it would see the 2 bottles were there, they'd break out, they'd find each other, and the good guy would kill the bad guy on the tabletop. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff that we could do with that. And we were really having fun with medium, and each brand had a different image on it so that we could kind of think, well, what would we do with this? There were like little photography games we played with Behringer. they would launch new brands like Embrazen on the app and then leverage the user base that they had from the app to launch this new brand. And Embrazen at that time was an unknown brand. It was their largest new wine launch that they've ever done among their brand group based upon launching it on the AR platform. So you can see how AR was actually effectively, able to launch new product in this case. And, the data was supporting that. And, another thing that was interesting is Treasury really didn't have much of a social presence at the time, but the user-generated recordings of these experiences started popping up all over Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we're getting movies of 19 Crimes and Walking Dead and things like this with viewership in the millions, just people recording the app. And so that created a social presence for them, and then they began to feed that, and that sort of had this network effect where they could kind of announce new experiences, bring them back to the app, and then bring people to the product, and all of these things kind of fed into each other. So it was kind of the perfect storm as far as that went. And we were able to kind of, I think some brands, had the built-in audience more than others. We were discovering that some brands, communicated better in AR based on the imagery. I think one of the ones we were really proud of was Chateau Saint Jean, but it was kind of, maybe not the same kind of collateral visually and things like that that maybe would generate an audience as something like Walking Dead or 19 Crimes that had more of a backstory and more imagery that maybe were more inherently experiential. So that was something that we tried to kind of think about when we were doing these experiences is, what would work and what wouldn't. And I think, for us, we've just continued to try and, expand this. There's been over 100 different experiences on the platform now. I lost count. It's well over 100 things that we've done for this brand at this point. We're doing volume capture now on 19 Crimes, and we cast some actors and dressed them up in period costume and had these different, one-act plays about the stories of John O'Reilly that happen around the bottles. That was another thing that we did, and we filmed all this at a volume capture stage in LA called Metastage, they're great people if you ever get the chance to work with them. They're really, they helped us kind of get all of this data, and then we optimized it all for the platform. And then, of course, with the success of 19 Crimes becoming their largest brand, Snoop kind of had heard about the AR experiences in the wine because of this, and he wanted to kind of be one of the faces on the bottle. And so when that happened, it was kind of a perfect storm where we had Snoop, coming to life on the bottle in the same manner it was, and then you get all the Snoop fans feeding into this, and he's such a cultural force himself, so that did really well. Like right off the bat, we have millions of users of this part of the app in and of itself, and it's become kind of a sub-brand with Snoop Cali Red and 19 Crimes Snoop Rosé as well. And that's continuing to grow and will continue to grow. And one thing we've done with the Snoop brand is we've jumped over to web AR. So now I think going into the future, web AR is going to be the next chapter of what 19 Crimes is about. So we're working with the brand now to migrate a lot of these experience direct to a one-click kind of experience using the Eighth Wall platform. And we'll be able to kind of do all the things that we did in the app and more, I think, as time goes on. Sort of the ceiling just keeps going up in terms of what we're able to do. So we're not constrained as much anymore by kind of, we have to work within a game engine in a traditional development environment. Now we can get our entire animation pipeline and game pipeline out over the web, and it's fun. We've been having fun with it. So that's kind of where things are going, and we're excited about it. And, since 19 Crimes, we've been able to do these same types of experiences for, Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble and Blue Diamond and, a number of brands. And we're seeing they're taking this same kind of portfolio approach where we can build a platform for them and then make a whole array of experiences that feed each other and get user bases. But we're doing those over the past couple of years on the web. And so I think that's sort of the next stage of this for us. Anyway, thank you. That's my sort of run through of it. And I'm here to take questions if anybody has any. Sure.
Thanks, Peter. You know that I follow Tactic for quite a while with big fanboy eyes. One thing I find really interesting is the way you innovated around the format. And so the early 19 Crimes bottles and other ones you did, Rebel, for example, they're flush on the bottle. Other ones, like the Saint Jean, are kind of more like finding itself inside the bottle, so they add like more like a
portal,
like a portal. Then the holographic, volumetric stuff is outside of the bottle. And sometimes you bridge the distance between me, the viewer, and the content by breaking the screen with The Walking Dead. And so like, I look at all of that variety in terms of how we really utilize AR, because all of them are AR. It's just like different ways of kind of implementing it. Have you found out, like through that trial and error, kind of best practices of like, is like one type of AR inherently more effective than the others?
I kind of think, I come from the movie industry, and the thing about all that is making it seamless. If you have the dragon show up on Harry Potter's castle and he's shaking around and he doesn't fit on top of the castle, you know it's not real. So part of this is making a seamless fit with reality, and so getting the lighting right, getting the fit around the product right, that's really important. So I don't think it's as much about whether it's outside, inside, or on the surface as is it seamless. And so if it can start and maybe end with your own reality, but then grow into this extended reality that's believable, and you can have that suspension of disbelief, that's kind of where people get an emotional resonance with this. Whether it's, and that's visual storytelling, really, you know, and it doesn't have to be a story with a, you know, beginning, middle, and end, so to speak, but you create a visual that comes out of your reality, and that, I think, drives emotional interest in these things.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi. I hope this isn't too technical of a question, but with wine bottles, compared to maybe earlier like things where you're scanning a target, obviously it's a curved surface, and is that something that early on was hard for you, and is that all you do? Like, it's
made easy for us by the tool sets that develop, you know, the platforms like Eighth Wall, you know, that once they on the web started supporting cylindrical tracking and conical tracking, we're like, oh cool, we can track conical packages and cylindrical packages now. So, you know, whether it's, you know, Eighth Wall or some of the game engine based ones, if the tool set is there, we leverage it. We don't reinvent the wheel. You know, we're pretty agnostic as far as that goes. Yeah.
Hey there. Yeah, this was awesome. Quick question. I know you mentioned that the brand was driving users to the app in like the wineries and the tasting room. Did they put any other type of paid media against this, other promotional activities?
This is like the ultimate question, and a lot of our clients ask us this, and I think it's a little different. Like when we're doing stuff for Jack Daniel's or Jim Beam, for example, those are legacy brands. Like Jack Daniel's label has been out for like 50 years and it's not changed, you know, and they have a user base that's more about having, you know, rock concerts or, you know, motorcycles with their, you know, brand on it and things like this, just to enhance the user experience, and it's not as much about growing audience. So each brand is a little bit different in their goals, but I think in general, we say if a tree falls in the woods, it doesn't matter how cool the tree is, people aren't gonna necessarily pick it up. So I think the imagery has to be really compelling to begin with, the subject matter, you know, if it's just a generic package and it's doing something generic, it doesn't really matter how clean the technical execution, that's part of it. But then you really have to make awareness. So social media, pushing it on there, if there's already a channel there to push, we encourage that. If there's, you know, TVC money to put towards it, that's great. If the package itself can have a QR code on it and, you know, a call to action on it, or if there's out-of-home advertising or kiosks that can sort of tell people, try this thing, people will do it. It's a camera-first society now, more and more, with people looking at their phones all the time and using their cameras for TikTok and Instagram and everything. And so just going out into the world and using their camera to scan something and have an experience is a natural. And they need to know about it, though, and there needs to be part of the budget set aside for that, so there's an awareness for some traction, you know? And then the rest is word of mouth and can go organic once that gets spun up, you know? Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much for the talk.
Yeah.
My question is about, you mentioned that at some point that the things started to go as like a hockey stick. But before that, I can imagine that as creators of this technology or the experience, you need to be able to convince the brand that this is going to be a positive for their sales.
Yeah.
I am curious about what was the biggest challenge for you, or what are the challenges and how did you overcome while you were linking the sales to the experience, or if there was any one-to-one link?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, once they saw the cash coming in, they get a lot more interested, you know? So, but I think like more and more brands that we're dealing with now they'll see some other, like for our firm, they'll see another success we had and they'll be like, we want one of those, you know, or whatever. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but there are different measures of success. Like I said to the other person who asked, like we did some commemorative cups for Coca-Cola, and it was the fastest those commemorative cups ever sold out. Now, the numbers on that were maybe 75,000 cups or something, you know, and it was a limited run for 2 months. But those metrics, by their old standards, were blown out of the water because of the experiential activation on the cups. So I think everything has its own scale and its own context, and AR can fit into all of these contexts and help leverage experience into physical packaging and make those situations, you know, I mean, I think really there are different goals, you know, different levers for different problems, you know, and yeah, sure.
You said, well, once the money is there, this is easy to convince. But how were you able to link that, okay, money is coming by because of the AR activation?
Oh, well, we have full analytics stacks on everything we're doing. So we're able, like for Treasury, well, by the way, we made the initial platform over the first year, and then we turned that over to another company because we were working on a lot of different projects. But we set it up so it fed right into their Salesforce data. And so they were able to corroborate sales and scans. So we know each user and each scan of each SKU. We don't know their name, but we know so-and-so is in Connecticut or in Buenos Aires or whatever, and we know when they scanned it and how many times. And you can infer different things. If it's cereal and somebody scans the same cereal box, you know, 4 days in a row, it might be the same cereal box. But if it's, you know, 4 times over 4 months, you can infer different things. Maybe it's a different cereal box. And then you can, you know, so I think there are different ways to interpret the data, but we have the data, and we can look at the sales, and we can look at when this debuted, and we can see what the results were, you know. And I think for 19 Crimes, it was quite stark. And for some of the other brands that we launched under Living Wine labels, it was equally stark in that respect. Anyway, all right. Is that time, or we're good? All right. Thank you very much. Yeah.